Hey guys, sorry I haven't posted a video in a while. It's been a very busy alpine season, and I'm still have about 5 or 6 weeks left before the season's over, and I got a lot of climbing coming up. But I did want to make a few videos just to hold you guys over until I can start producing them normally again. And so now I got another addition to my quick tip series, which is going to be how to tie into the middle of the rope. So there are a couple different knots that people like doing this, and like tying into the middle of the rope can be a useful skill to have if you're climbing in a group of 3, for example, maybe in the alpine where you only want to bring one rope. As guides, we tie into the middle of the rope a lot when we have 2 clients on more 5th class pitch terrain. And then also if you're gonna maybe bring out a half rope but you still want the purposes of climbing with 2 separate ropes, you can use this little trick with a half rope. Have your friend tie into 2 ends of the rope and then you tie into the middle. And so I'm just going to talk about the knots for tying into the middle of the rope. So the first one that's the most simple is I can tie figure 8 on a bite, just like so. I'm going to actually go through the process of cleaning the knot. You can come closer and zoom in on my crotch. And now all I do is take one locking carabiner and either a non-locker or a locker and clip these in, lock at least a locker, and now I'm tied into the middle of the rope. So there are some drawbacks to this. One is it uses 2 lockers, and if I'm using this, usually I'm in the alpine, so I only have like 5 lockers on me to begin with, so I use a lot of material here. And then 2 is this is kind of cumbersome to climb around with. The knot hangs a bit lower, so it can get caught in more stuff like your crampons or whatever. But this is still a way how you can tie yourself into the middle of the rope. I'll just undo these real fast. So another way how to tie into the middle of the rope is I'm going to take my my bend right here. I'm going to pass it through my tie-in points, and I'm going to tie a bowline on a bite. So essentially there's a couple different ways to do this. You can make a loop like so. The end coming from your harness is on top of the loop. Bring your end right here and pass it up through, around the tree, and then back down the hole. And then now I've tied a bowline. I am going to actually sort of work this around because I want kind of a small tail on my bowline. And since if that passes through back the knot, then the whole knot falls apart, I'm going to take a locking carabiner, just clip that off to my swami, so that way it can't possibly come untied. And then we have a bowline on a bite. So for a while, this was my favorite way to tie into the middle of the rope because I can keep this knot nice and close to my harness. It does use a locker, but not as much as 2 lockers, so that's more okay. You know, you don't burn 2 lockers, only 1. And then if I really wanted to, I could always knot it off the old-fashioned way, or I guess the more normalized way, where after I pull a whole bunch of slack through, another way to tie off this bowline is I could always just have an extra large amount of tail and then tie a double or a single barrel knot right there, so that way it gets tied off. Me personally, I don't like this because when the knot gets oriented up, it kind of butts into me, so you can easily tie it on the lower strand to keep that out of your way, but it also subtracts the amount of rope that I have available to myself. So that's why I really prefer having a bowline with a small tail, and I just clip it off. Okay, so the third knot I'm going to show you is what we call the Retraced BHK, or there are a few other names for it, but that's essentially what we're doing. First, I'm going to start with an overhand knot with a decent amount of tail right here. I'm going to pass that up through my 2 tie-in points. I like to orient the knot so that way I can retrace the outside versus the inside, but now I just put this end through and trace the outside of my overhand knot with that bite. There we go, make sure it's nice and tight. And some people, you may see this, they will actually lock off this end right here with a locking carabiner. But the argument that other folks will say, and I'm in this group, is that this tail is the equivalent of a tail from your figure 8 tie-in. So I personally feel like you don't need to clip this off, and many other professionals in the community feel that as well. And it's a nice clean knot. It may seem a little bulky at first, but if you get really good at tying it clean and tight, it's a nice tight knot. It keeps a low profile. It does use some amount of rope, but not really that much, and I don't need to use any carabiners while clipping it into myself. So I prefer tying in with this knot in the middle now.